Welcome to Into the Night. I'm Nari, your guide on today's excursion down a twisted path. Be careful not to get lost. Be it dark or light, it's easy to lose your way. Are you ready? Then let's begin. A Lady Indeed, Part 1. The room's filled with the smell of sweat, cattle, and drunkenness. Bursts of fake laughter from women paid to entertain cowhands, bankers, gamblers, and even preachers accentuated the night. Rowdy men in the saloon below waited their turns and swigged whiskey. The moon glowed brightly as Charity McShane stared out her third-floor window. She was lucky, comparatively, to those girls who were too young, too old, or too unfortunate, and who must now work the cattle drive company filling the brothel tonight. It was a Thursday, and Thursdays were always reserved for Olin Grigsby. "What are you thinking of, Charity?" A wrinkled hand patted her arm. "You look as far away as that moon." She gave him a half-hearted smile. "Just considering myself lucky. I'm spending tonight with you, not that." She pointed to the floor below. "Yes, I'm glad I can protect you from that, even if it's just on Thursdays." Charity looked back out the window, wishing she was somewhere other than Wickenburg. Then again, where would she go? This was the only town she'd ever known, and life on her own in some strange place may be even worse than here. "Olin, sometimes I wonder how and why I ended up like this. When Mama and Daddy was still alive, we had so many hopes. I was 14 when they died, and I had nowhere to go. I thought I'd starve by myself. Miss Mabel took me in here. I'm glad I didn't starve, but I'm so ashamed that this is my life." A tear ran down her cheek. Olin once again patted her arm. "Charity, you know how fond I am of you. I'm telling you right now, if I was 40 years younger, I'd make an honest woman out of you. Unfortunately, I'm old, and I won't be around forever. I'll take care of you for as long as I can, though." Charity knew Olin cared about her. He paid extra just to have her attention all to himself on Thursdays. Other girls were jealous that she had what they considered a night off. Only someone with means like Olin Grigsby could afford to purchase her for an entire night a week. "That's terribly sweet of you to say. We both know that can't happen. And it's too late for me anyway. I'll never be a lady like my mama wanted me to be." "We'll see about that, Charity." Olin's voice had an edge of determination to it. "Let me take care of you." The next day, Charity was back in the saloon. Some of the men were pigs, even in broad daylight. Others stopped by just for a drink or a friendly card game. Unfriendly games could end with guns drawn, and no one wanted that. As Sid Mackey, the bartender, said, gunfire was bad for business. In the corner of the saloon sat Clay Monroe. His shy nature often overshadowed his good looks, and he was the kind of man most people didn't see as having much to offer. Yes, he was a good, dependable ranch hand, but he wasn't much of a drinker, fighter, or gambler. People whispered behind his back because the only thing Clay ever partook of at Miss Mabel's was an occasional shot of brandy. Brandy wasn't exactly a manly drink, and what kind of man doesn't like the ladies? It made people wonder about him. Today, Charity delivered drinks to tables and talked and laughed with the card players. Clay sat quietly to the side in his usual corner spot, engaging in another questionable activity. He was reading a book. While people in general thought little of Clay Monroe, Charity McShane thought a lot about him. He wasn't the biggest, the baddest, or the richest man in town, but he was kind. He never once made an unseemly move towards her, and whenever he came in for his shot of brandy, Charity made a point of striking up a conversation with him. Today was no different. "Hello, Clay." He looked up from his book a little startled. "Hello, Miss Charity." He folded the corner of a page over and put the book down. "What are you reading? It must be good. You've barely touched your shot." Oh, sorry about that. It's a book I've read before, just one of my favorites. Charity glanced at the cover, and her eyes widened. You're reading The Scarlet Letter? You know about it? It was my mother's favorite. She read it to me. Charity ducked her head. Kind of ironic, isn't it? Why is that? My mother's favorite book was about an immoral woman, and now look at me. Her face reddened. I think you misunderstood the book, Miss Charity. Hester was a good woman with a good heart. She wasn't the immoral one. Hawthorne shows us how horrible all the supposedly good people were. That Dimmesdale was more at fault than Hester. He pretended to be a good man, but he was just as guilty. In fact, he was no man at all, because he let her take all the blame just so he could protect himself. I hadn't thought about it that way. I was pretty young when Mama read it to me. Clay leaned over the table towards her like he was revealing a secret. He pointed his finger around the room. Take these men here. None of them hold their heads in shame, even though they're here all the time. Most of them could find their way up those stairs blindfolded. No one tries to shame them. No one should shame you either. You're a fine person. It's nice of you to say so. It's true. Maybe we could talk about the book more another time. I love books, and I would love to hear what you think. Charity stared at him for a second. A man was talking to her like she was a real person. Someone who'd have thoughts and could talk about books. I'd like that very much, if you're sure you'd want to be seen with me. I'd very much like to. Clay blushed. I would too. Charity was called to bring another round of drinks to a table, and their conversation ended. The peaceful afternoon was broken when a shouting match began. Everyone's attention turned to the angry men now in each other's faces. It wasn't poker or drink that sparked the argument, however. It was land. By God, Horace Cotter, you are not going to buy that land out from under me. It's the best grazing land in these parts, and it's going to be mine. Enos, don't be so sure about that, Bill Buckley shouted, joining the argument. I'm going to get that land, not either one of you. By the time Sid Mackey made his way around the counter, 5 or 6 men joined the fray. Each insisted that they weren't going to be cheated out of owning it. Clay Monroe sat quietly, watching the squabble. Charity caught his eye, and he motioned her over. What's this all about, Clay? There's a large stretch of land west of town. It has 5 artesian wells on it and some good grassland. You know how important grassland is, and the water is as good as gold here in the desert. There's been a lot of bad feelings boiling up over who's going to get their hands on that property. Who owns it now? They call it the Wellington Ranch. Rumor has it there's some foreigner who owns it, but he's wanting to sell. It's from some old land grant or mining money. The stories keep changing. You know how rumors go. But it's a nice piece of land. I doubt it will be cheap if it's for sale. I just hope no one gets shot in the meantime. It's been ugly, Miss Charity. Please, stay safe. She couldn't bear the thought of a nice man like Clay tangling with the likes of the men now frothing at the mouth over a piece of land. No worries there. I don't have 2 nickels to rub together. I'm not going to be in the middle of a land grab. I'd best be getting back to the bunkhouse, though. Say, would Saturday morning work to talk about this? He tapped the book. Yes, that would be wonderful. Meet me out by the Mercantile about 8 o'clock. I can't do it this weekend, but how about the next? I'd love that. I'll see you then. Have a good day, ma'am. He tipped his hat. A man had never tipped his hat to her before. On Thursday, Olin Grigsby seemed especially quiet. Have I upset you, Olin? No, sweet girl. I have some serious matters to discuss with you, however. He patted the chair next to him for her to sit down. Charity's heart dropped. Please don't tell me we're stopping our Thursdays. No. Well, yes. But hear me out first. Charity's hazel eyes welled with tears. She'd known her good fortune would run out at some point. What did you want to tell me? She straightened her back to ready herself. Olin took both her hands in his. We are friends, Charity. You are my only friend, and you're the only one I trust in this world. As you know, my wife died 20 years ago. My only child, Roy, died when he was just 17. I have no one left. I want you to know what you mean to me. Olin, you have always been more than kind to me. You know I care about you, too. You've been more than kind to me, dear. You've listened to me prattle on about long-ago places and people who have been dead for years on many nights. You've never treated me like I'm just a customer. You've treated me like I'm matter. On Thursday nights, I'm not just some old man people don't even think to stop and say hello to. You're a good man, Olin. I believe we are friends, too. I've enjoyed all of our talks. He shifted in his chair, and a somber expression took over him. I have some good news and some bad news to tell you tonight, Charity. First, the bad news. Olin took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. He gently squeezed her hand. Doc Billingsley has told me for a long time that my health was failing. You know he won't sugarcoat anything. Well, last week he told me I could die any day. It's my heart. Oh, Olin, that can't be. It's true. I can feel it. But it's okay. I've lived a long life. Now it's time for me to do something worthwhile. I've spent the last week getting all this in order. Now it's time for the good news. No good news will make up for the terrible news you've just told me. Charity hadn't realized how important Thursdays with Olin had been. What would she do now? Thank you for joining me for Into the Night, an anthology series written by Caroline Giammanco, narrated and produced by Nari Kwak, with music created by Alex Sexton. Theme music by Nico Rodriguez. Our links are in the show notes. Into the Night is available on your favorite podcast directory, so be sure to subscribe and follow so you never miss an episode. We would really appreciate a 5-star review, as it helps new excursionists to find and join us. Feel free to share with someone you want to bring along on our next excursion. I'd love to hear from you on Twitter at Into the Night Pod or by email at itnanthology@gmail.com. I'll see you next time. And remember, whether in the shadows or in the daylight, all twisted paths lead you into the night.